I barely graduated high school myself, but for the opposite of the reasons for these tests. I'd like just to emphasize that I got third in the state for my school in history the same year I was failing. So this goes the other direction. These tests don't always necessarily show effort. You know, I wasn't a good student, you know, along with, you can mention all the great students who may be left behind in this, and I think it's important to emphasize this is such a shallow way of looking at a student. I also really appreciate to see your pens moving so much, because you really are paying close attention to what everyone's saying, and that makes a major difference to me. I want to tell you a little story as to why I wanted to stand up here today. In 2008, I deployed to Afghanistan as a corpsman, which is a medic in the Navy with the Marines, southern Afghanistan, right around the same time as the elections and the recession was just beginning. And, you know, obviously it was not an easy time being there at that time. We were the only Americans there, just a few hundred people taking care of an area the size of Maine. And it was a very tough time for all of us. There's one anecdote I'd like to share, and that is that while I was there, numerous times while I was handing out candy to the kids and so forth, they would come running up, and they would hold up their palms, and they would put their hands in their hands like this, and they would say over and over again, Kalam, 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 Mr. Kalam, over and over again, as many times as they could say it. And after a few times of this happening, I finally went to my interpreter, who called me doctor, because I was a medic, and I would say, I was like, what is Kalam? And Wolf replied to me, Doctor, Kalam means pens. They want pens to do their homework with. And since I started college, I came home, and I was so just grateful to be home that I wanted to get as civically engaged as I could be. I wanted to get as involved in education as I could be, because it became desperately obvious that that was the real reason why we were in Afghanistan in the first place. Our citizenry was not educated enough to make a decision not to go into a foreign country and fight a bad war, and neither were they prepared to defend themselves with education when we arrived. And so it struck home to me that the education I did not want when I was in high school was precisely what we all needed. And the reason why I fear for these things changing is because of the importance of being able to make a personal connection to students all the time. I had an opportunity to volunteer with a high school. I got a chance to take a few kids sailing after I got home, which is one of the other things I wanted to do. And it made such a great difference to me to be able to do so. And I wish I could say that the students learned a ton from me, which I know they did to some extent, but the amount that I learned back from those students that I volunteered with made the greatest difference. You know, and to talk about all these very important nuts and bolts and the black and white of these trends, all these things that are changing, extremely important, and all the professionals here today, including yourselves, are looking at those things and asking what's going to be best for the students, and that's the most wonderful conversation that we can have. But to forget about the extraordinarily important nature of having a conversation, a civic conversation, that continues, you know, after this issue is resolved, however it may resolve, is so important to me. You know, and you know, I might want to be a teacher one day, but I do not want to spend my time worrying specifically about the math and reading scores of my students. That should be something I'm already good at, as a parent said, and that should be something that the students should be interested in, hopefully. But when you watch a pack of kids go running into school excited when they're 5, 6, 7 years old, they start off life really excited about this stuff. You know, they really do, and it is our fault that they lose track and start deciding not to go. It's the fault of all the economic reasons that they do not stay interested. In some cases, they don't have even parents, either mother or father. There's so many other things, other than just math and reading. You know, and of course those things are so important. You know, but without the civic dialogue, without the history, without all those other things that come along with school that matter so much as a society, we're not going to get in there and dig in. And by setting a very strict requirement with regards to math and reading, those lesser than good teachers, those teachers that, I'm sorry, are not going to be able to do as good a job. We'll emphasize that more. And they will spend more time worrying about those tests and less time making personal connections, talking about what it means to be an American citizen, a Rhode Island citizen, what it means to be from Barrington or Scituate or Central Falls, which are unique little communities in this tiny fishbowl that we have as a state. They're so different from one place to the next. We should add those questions to the test. Why don't we get our boards together and talk, what would you like to see your students asked about that we don't ever ask about? Absolutely. I'm almost finished, and I just greatly appreciate this. You know, if we don't continue this beyond when this gets changed, let's say everything goes in exactly the way it is and it happens that way, you know, the most beautiful thing that I see happening is everybody asking me these questions. It's the most important thing. Maybe we all failed to do that beforehand. I know I did, and I know that I couldn't say the best about every one of the educators that educated me when I was in high school, but some of them were fantastic. And they put on shows, and even though I didn't care about physics at first, my physics teacher was such a goofy, crazy guy, I connected with him and I learned a little physics, you know. It was nothing, it had nothing to do with, you know, whether or not there was a new test coming down the pike that was terrifying about his job or anything. It had nothing to do with that. He was good at what he did. You know, and that's why I learned physics. And so, you know, those things are what really matter to me, to get to make those connections, those personal connections.